Hi guys, this is Jeff at Slavens Racing. This video is about how to convert a 250 SX into a 300. This is pretty popular conversion. Guys buy these 250 SXs for a number of reasons, but one is they're extremely light because they don't have a lot of the other goodies on them that some of the other KTM models do. They're also less expensive, and then the dealers are usually more willing to negotiate on the price on them because you know, they're not as big a seller as like the 300 cross-country models and XCW model. So, you know, it's really kind of a, like I said before, it's pretty popular, and we get lots of questions about this, and we sell a lot of these cylinder kits for this application. So I'm going to help you install one. So first of all, I like to start out by organizing the parts that I'm using, and then bringing out the tools I'm going to need. Now, I don't normally, for myself, lay out the tools like this. I grab most of what I need, kind of throw it in a pile. I always have my toolbox real close by, right here next to the bike, so I don't normally organize them like that, but I did for this video so I can kind of tell you and show you what you're going to need. All right, well, let's start over here, and I really highly recommend that you have a nice clean workspace, a clean motorcycle. This one is actually brand new, but I see guys, they send me pictures and videos and stuff of something they're working on, and it's just filthy. I mean filthy. The bike, they didn't even power wash it after the last ride. So that makes the job a lot more difficult in my opinion. You know, you're constantly fighting the dirt falling into the inside of the engine, and you know, it's just a grubby mess. So wash your bike. Then organize your parts, and the more organized you are, the faster the job will go, the better your end result will be. So start off here. These parts down here are ones that I've already taken off. You know, the head bolts and miscellaneous things to hold on the tank and seat and whatever. This is the mounting. Excuse me, the engine mount from the head to the frame. I've got a new spark plug there because the stock spark plug is one of these little BR-ECMs, and that is the equivalent of a lawnmower plug. I mean, it's a very cheap, real basic quality spark plug. Does it work? Sure, but not what I run on my bikes. I really prefer to upgrade to an iridium plug. There's enough, they last longer, they perform better, and you know, spark plugs not that expensive. All right, from there, piston with rings comes with it, wrist pin and some clips, SX head for higher compression, and a cylinder. Now this cylinder is already assembled. I'm not sure if they're coming that way now or not. In the past you had to assemble them, so I'm sorry. I'm not sure about that. Also, I'm going to put an SX CDI in there. There's gaskets and O-rings and stuff that came with the kit. I'll explain what to use there later. Wrist pin bearing came with the kit, but this bike is brand new, so I'm not going to replace the wrist pin bearing. It also comes with bolts, head bolts. I don't know why. Nothing wrong with the ones that come out of it. And 250s and 300s use the same head bolts. And then it comes with those copper sealing washers, which you should use. And radiator cap. So when you're draining the fluid, I take my bikes outside to do this. You know, I don't care how careful I am, I always end up splattering that stuff on the floor, the hoist or whatever, and I hate antifreeze. You know, it's a sticky mess. So I always drain the coolant outside first into a pan and then properly recycle it. Don't pour it down the drain. That's a bad idea. And but when you're doing the radiator, when you're draining that fluid, and I'll show you where you do it on the other side of the bike when I get into it. Leave the cap on, undo the bolt, the drain bolt, then take the cap off and stand back out of the way because it's going to come blasting out of there. If you take the cap off first and try to remove that bolt, it's going to as you're unscrewing that bolt, you're going to get it all over you. So do it that way, leave the cap on. And I don't see any other parts in there we need to discuss. All right, over here are the tools that you're going to need. And I believe this is a T45 Torx, a T25 Torx, an 8mm socket. This is kind of a screwdriver type handle, and it has a provision for a ratchet to go into the end of it. 13mm socket to remove the head bolts. Some thread locker. I've got a little pry bar back there. A couple of T-handles to remove miscellaneous body work and other stuff. This is a 12 and 13mm box end. I'm going to just use the 13mm end because KTMs don't have 12s. This is an old pipe spring tool that I've had forever. It's actually a body tool. I've probably had that thing at least 40 years. A spark plug wrench. This is a Motion Pro gasket scraper. This is a ratchet for this. And another X-Acto knife that I'll use for either trimming gaskets or possibly scraping. And this is another gasket scraper. And let's see here, we've got a pickup here for removing the circlips on the piston. Needle nose pliers for installing the easy circlips. I forgot to tell you about those. So easy circlips right here. These are a product that we sell the hell out of, and I highly recommend you get them. They don't come with this kit. We do have them separately. Much easier to install the clips than the stock ones. The OEM clips, I can get them in there without tearing up the piston, but I see guys send me pictures all the time. They've just almost destroyed the side of the piston with gouge marks trying to get those things in there, or they shoot across the room on you, or they hit you in the head, or whatever. And as I mentioned, speaking of that, make sure you always wear safety glasses when you're doing this kind of job. Over here I just have a flat blade screwdriver. I use that for popping off one of the hoses. And then some 3-bond sealant, a 3-bond 1184. This is a light gray, fairly thin gasket sealer. Does not get hard. Yamaha makes the same product. It's called Yamaha Bond. Honda has Honda Bond. Those are all good if you already have those at home. We sell this 3-bond stuff. I don't know what it costs. So I'm going to say $7 or $8 or something. And oh my gosh, we've got a torque wrench in there. And hold on, I got some. Oh my gosh, we've got a torque wrench in here. I had to throw that out there so you torqueholics wouldn't have a coronary event. And I will use it on torquing the head. That's a Mac clicker style. I think for most people, the digitals are better for newbies. And then we've got this orange Harley tool. Excuse me, I meant to say dead blow hammer. And then some reading glasses. If you're an old fart like me, you need those. And I'm sure there's a couple things I forgot, but I'll grab those out of the toolbox as I proceed on here. All right, so from there, guys, I'm gonna move over to the other side of the bike and set this camera on a tripod so I can work on it. So stay tuned for just a second. All right, guys, I'm over here on the right side of the bike now, and I'm gonna start taking things apart. As I mentioned earlier, well, maybe I didn't mention earlier, but I've already taken off the pipe, and it's very simple. There's just 2 springs here, a bolt here, and a bolt on this bracket right here. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And I took the radiator off. That does not have to come off to do a top end rebuild, but it does make it easier. But I took it off mainly because it makes it easier to get a good angle for the camera, so you guys can see a little bit better. I'm doing this for myself. As I mentioned before, my wife is injured, so it's difficult for her to stand here and help me do videos. So I'm going to take this bracket off. I've already taken the one off on the other side, and I've already loosened these up. These take a T45, a Torx bit. So We'll need that. And then this cover is a T25. I've already removed those screws. And it kind of slides on to a rubber grommet down here, so you should slide it back off that way if you can. And then right here's a little clip that retains this power valve arm. And I just take you have to go from the front side here. Let's see if I can do this so it's not seeing. I don't want to block the camera. Yeah, there we go. And it just kind of rotates, but I'm going to start over here. What you really need to do is take some paper towel, just tear a little section out, and stuff it down into this hole here. Because this goes down into the primary cover, and if that clip gets down in there, it's going to get chewed up by the primary gears or possibly get over into the transmission and get chewed up. So you don't want to have to fix that mess. Anyhow, so pop this back off. And then it slides down like that. And that's out now. And then it pops off. So you can just pry against whatever. It's not going to hurt to pry because it pops right off. So there you go, you got it. I'm going to take this back out. So there the arm is. And kind of feel how much downward pressure there is on that ball connection here. So, because you want to make sure you have about the same when you put it back together. All right, from there I'm going to push this up. That will allow me to get this nut out of here. It's a 13 millimeter. Box end works best. I don't even know if you can get a open end in there or not. Okay. Use this little pick here and get this out of here. They usually don't drop in like that. And of course, since I'm making a video, it's going to do it. There we go. No, I'm not going to worry about that for now because as I lift up the cylinder, it will come right out of there. I want to go to the other side, and now that this power valve linkage is up, I can get that other nut off. I'll do there real quick. Alright, so cylinder nuts are off all the way around. Now technically you should probably loosen those a quarter of a turn in a cross pattern and then finish loosening them all the way. This is a very stable environment here. Nothing's going to get warped or something, so I don't really get too worried about that. I'm going to pull this gasket out of here. I'm actually going to reuse this because these are a rubber coated metal gasket and it's in very good shape. You know, this engine's new. I'm going to start, well actually I'll pull the head off first. Now you always want to make, on this job, since we're going to be changing the cylinder and the head to a 300, you know, you're going to want to get the spark plug out of here possibly if you're going to reuse it. I'm not going to reuse it. I'm going to put in a new one. But if you're planning on reusing it, you should take it out now. Because once you get the head off, it's really hard to get the spark plug out. It's hard to hold onto the head and remove the spark plug. You can clamp it in a vise right here if really necessary, but it's best to just do it now. And let's see, this hose, you kind of just have to take a flat blade screwdriver and pry on this. And once you get it kind of started, it will come off. And let's see here, what am I forgetting? So I'm going to pull the head off because I've already got the bolts out of it. And I should have left one of these nuts on here. I think I'll just put that back on real quick. Just to kind of hold the cylinder while I pop that head off. And the way I usually do that is I take one of the head bolts and I just stick it in the side hole here where the bracket goes, and then I can jiggle it and get it off of there. All right, so now the head's off. I don't like that style dome or squish. I'm gonna take this nut back off. And it should be ready to go here. Now the cylinders usually don't stick, I mean, especially a brand new motor, but sometimes they do. And if they do, you can just kind of hit it right here on the side with a dead blow hammer, you know, the old Harley tool. And that will loosen them up. This one's already loose. Get this hose out of the way. And I'm going to push down the piston through here. Now some guys like to put the bike in gear and get the cylinder at top, bottom dead center. I don't waste my time with that. All right, so this is off now. And it's time to remove the piston from the rod so we can put on the larger bore. This is, remember, this is a 250. So I'm going to stuff a rag down in here because I don't want to possibly drop the circlips in there. And you can use either one of these grooves here to remove it. I'm going to look and see where the end of this is. All right, it's right about there, so it should pop right out. So the clip is out. And let me see here. I'm going to see if I can use this extension. Nope, this one won't work. All right. So on the opposite side, I'm just going to push on it with this thread. That comes right off. This pin bearing is brand new, no need to replace it. And I'm going to pull these gaskets off. So I keep these gaskets, after I pull them off, I measure these gaskets to see what the thickness is. And on this one, I'm going to set it up with the stock dimension because this guy wants it to rev. For a trail riding guy, I would put a little thinner base gasket on it to give more bottom end. Also raise the compression a little. All right, from there we're going to go over here to the gasket tools. Scrape this. I don't think you guys need to watch me do that, so I'm going to stop the video for a minute. Okay guys, now I've got the gasket surface all cleaned. I used a combination of scrapers. I used the X-Acto knife, and I used this scraper, which I like the best. This is a really old one from Mac Tools from about 30 years ago. And I used this one, which we sell these, but I gotta say, I'm not impressed. I don't like the angle of them. I don't like the feel of it. And scraping gaskets is a lot about feel. Also, you know, these brass tips on here easily get little burrs on them, so you got to kind of dress them up with a stone or a file, or even some sandpaper. But whatever you do, don't gouge up the gasket surface. All right, so I've got the cylinder down here, and it's ready to go on now. And this is the adjuster. Let's see if you can see this. Yeah. So right here is the adjuster for the power valve flap on how far it can come down. And those are notorious for leaking. So I already put some of that 3-bond sealant. I just put it around it. You know, it doesn't look the greatest, but you can't see it when it's on the bike anyhow. So I would, as a little preventative maintenance, I would do that first. They're also well known for leaking up here around this piece. And I'll show you how to seal that when we get to that point. Let's see here. Now this style of adjuster is only 20, 21, and 22. And this, you know, all this stuff applies to the GasGas 250, what's it called, MC, the Husky TC, and then the KTM SX models. So it's all the same engine. So 20, 21, 22 have that style of adjuster for the power valve. The previous years had, so this is the right side. On the opposite side, the left side, they had this plate. And that's how you made the adjustment for the flap. Okay guys, so from there, I've measured these gaskets. And it's a 0.5 and a 0.25, and those come in the cylinder kit. The cylinder kit comes with 5 gaskets. And this is to get the X dimension correct, how far the piston comes up in the cylinder. And if you set it up with from the factory with these gaskets, it's going to have the piston flush with the top of the cylinder. Now on trail bikes, like I mentioned before, I usually put on a thinner gasket, then the piston actually gets a little bit above the gasket surface, which is fine. There's plenty of room between the piston and the squish band. There's about 80 thousandths. It only needs to be 30, so there's plenty of room there. This bike belongs to Alex's dad, and he is going to, be on the track with it and stuff. So he wants it to rev hard, as hard as a 300 can. They don't rev like 250s, but he wants it to rev. So I'm going to keep the dimension on the gaskets the same. So I've already got this pulled out, and I'm going to put them on. But before I do that, I'm going to put a little sealer on this surface up here. Let's see if that looks right. Yep. So I'm going to put some gasket sealer mainly on where the cases come together. I assembled one, I don't know, about a month ago, and it leaked antifreeze out the front. I had to pull the cylinder back off and put some sealer on it. And I've been putting gaskets on dry on the base gaskets for many, many years with no issues. But KTM has started putting a sealer on theirs as well. Theirs is more of a silicone sealer, which I really don't care for, but they've been doing it in this area as well, so they are aware of that problem. So I'm not going to mess around here. I'm going to put a little layer on there of this stuff, the 3-bond. Oh, watch out there. And you just can spread a thin coat on it. Just on that back side of the gasket where the cases come together, and then on the front side where the cases come together. And I'm doing about, I don't know, an inch each side of that seam where the cases come together. Okay. Now this stuff takes a while to set up, and it does not need to set up for this. So I'm going to put the gaskets on, and this flat part here goes towards here. It's kind of hard to put these gaskets. Actually, I'm not going to put these gaskets on yet because I'll probably tear them if I do. I want to put the piston on next. Okay, so first I need to check the ring end gap. And so that means I need to take these rings off of this piston kit. They were already installed. I'm going to push in. So if you're not familiar with two-stroke pistons, they've got a locating pin on each ring land. And that has to be there because the rings, if they rotated, they would catch in the ports and they'd break. The motor would blow up in about 2 minutes. So I just push in and then I grab the other side and I just wind it out like that. Same here. Push in on that one. Get this one to pop out. All right, from there, I'm going to put those rings down inside the cylinder. So let's move back down here. And I'm going to set, so there's letters on these. They usually have an N on them. And that goes up, although I really don't think it matters. These are what I call a flat ring. So they run parallel, on both sides are parallel, or if you put them in, if you take a pair of calipers and you put them in there, it clamps down all the way. Some rings are tapered, and if you do this, well then you can still wiggle the ring like this, but these are flat rings. So I don't really think it makes any difference which way they go, but I put them in the way the factory says. And I'm going to take this piston and I'm going to use it just to push down on that. First I'm going to eyeball it. Back to get fill gauges. I don't remember the exact spec on this. I think it's 12 to 14 thousandths. I usually set them up at 12. You really don't even need to do this, to be honest. These specs are all well within reason, but I'm going to double check it. And to do that, you just take a feeler gauge and you put it between the gap. And bingo, this one's just fine. It's a little bit tight on the 12, but I'm good with that. The next one should be the same. Now they don't make any different size rings. There's no oversized or undersized. What you get is what you get. So I'm going to stick this back in here, level that up. Do the same thing. Okay, that one's good too. Now if they happen to be too tight for your liking, I think they're really good. Anything over 10 thousandths is enough clearance, but if you really want to get anal about it and get the exact dimension there, where you can take a file and touch up these ends a little bit. It doesn't take much. So I'm going to put those back on the piston for now. It's kind of a reverse of what I did before, so I'm just going to, you'll see it sitting on top of there. I'm going to bend, these rings are very flexible, so you don't have to worry about breaking them. I'm going to stick it in that groove right at that pin. I'm going to wind it around. Okay, I'm going to grab the next one, do the same thing. The top one's easier. Just wind it around, bam, falls right in the groove. Line up the rings where the pins are. And that's ready to go on the rod. Now, since this motor's already been run on the dyno at the KTM factory, it doesn't really need any more lubricant on the rod bearing, but just to make you guys happy, I'll put a little dab on there. And it doesn't take much at all. And I'm just using some two-stroke oil. Some guys use assembly lube, but I don't like assembly lube. It's kind of thick and gooey. I really prefer to use what was intended to be in there, and that is premix oil. So I'm just going to put a little bit on my finger here and rotate it a little and put a little bit more on. And that is plenty for that. I know some guys like to put lubricant in this hole, but you know, if that turns you on, then go right ahead. I don't, as long as it slides fine. I mean, this thing slides really nice. There's no purpose to putting fluid in there other than to make it slide through there easier. As soon as the motor starts up, this thing's gonna have, you know, oil mist everywhere. And this does not, you know, rotate much, hardly at all. All right, so I've already put one of my circlips in, on the opposite side that I'm working on. And you can see I put the tangs at the top. So the tangs need to be either at the top or the bottom. If you're using the stock clips, well then the open end of the C-clip needs to be either the top or the bottom. The reason is if that's over on the side like this, with each, when the piston comes up to the top of the stroke, it stops down here, stop. With each one of those stops, that ring, that circlip, is going to be getting some G-force that's going to, you know, make it want to collapse, and that could make it pop out. So don't do that. Put the ends at the bottom or the top. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to stick this in here. You know, of course. Okay. All right, so that's working nice and smooth. I'm going to stick it on the rod. Yep, I move my camera. Okay. And then I'm just going to feel where it goes, push it in, take a rag. Yeah, I don't like sticking a rag down there with that gasket stuff on there. I got ahead of myself. I should have put the gasket stuff on, gasket sealer on last, but anyhow, I can still do it. So there we go. I'm going to get the other easy clip and my needle nose pliers. You need to have a fairly decent pair that's got some teeth left on it. See if I can rotate this a little bit. Yeah. And then you can stick it in there. I'll put my thumb on the bottom part of it to give it a little push and also keep it from flying back out at me. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it never fails. In front of the video, things always happen. All right, so that's in. I'm going to grab the tang, one of the tangs, and see if I can rotate it. That tells me that it's in the groove. If it's not in the groove, it won't do that. And it'll only rotate one direction. So I've got those at the bottom. It's good to go. Now it's ready for some gaskets. I'm going to put the thinner one on first, and this flat side here goes right here on this stud. And be gentle with these, it's easy to rip them. If you happen to rip one, call us up. We'll send you another one at no charge. You don't need to tell us some big story that they were damaged when you got them. We'll take care of you no matter what. And put the next one on. And I don't put any sealer between the gaskets. Okay, now I'm going to rotate this crank down. You know, if you really want to make this job easier, you can pull this hose off as well. And I might just do that real quick. It's just kind of a lot to juggle when you're trying to slide the cylinder on. Okay. Bam, now we've got a nice open workspace. And kind of depending on whether you're right-handed or left-handed, I'm right-handed, so for me it works best to grab the rings here with my left hand and hold the cylinder with my right hand, but whatever you're more comfortable with. But something I forgot to do here is clean up the inside of the cylinder bowl. Get something for that. Okay, what I've found that works very well for cleaning cylinder bores is a little WD-40. And I just spray some on a rag. And then I wipe out the inside of the cylinder. Now this cylinder's not really dirty because, you know, like I said, it's brand new. Well, this is the kit cylinder, which is definitely brand new. Sorry guys, I'm not doing very well there. Let me lower this camera a little bit. Okay. So just wipe it out the best you can. You'll get a little bit of grunge out of there. Okay, now it's ready to go on. Bring it up just a little where I can get some grip on it. I'm going to slide this in. Make sure those rings are located properly. And that's all there is to that. I'll never force the cylinder onto the piston. If it's not going on easily, then you're doing something wrong. So stop for a minute and reevaluate what you're doing. I always like to hold the cylinder on this by quick starter. And if you want to do that with electric starter, well, then I would probably put a cylinder nut on there. Doesn't have to be torqued or anything, but just want to make sure everything's working good. And what I should have done would be to put a little lubricant on that piston. And for that as well, I use this. But I'm not going to take it, well, maybe I will. I'll take it back apart and drop a little bit on there real quick. It's really not that important because as soon as it starts, and as soon as you kick it, not even start, it's getting lubrication. I'm not even going to pull it all the way off. I'm just going to put a little bit on the skirt here. The rings don't really need any. Can if you want, but right there. Alright, I'll drop it back down. Okay guys, that's ready to go. Kind of put on some cylinder nuts. I don't want them to go on there very well. For this, you want to push this linkage plate all the way up. That allows you to get the nut in there. There we go. Okay, that takes a 13mm box end. I'm going to snug these just slightly before I move to the other side. Put put the other two on from the left side of the bike. And okay, I'm just snugging these a little bit. All right, now I'm going to tighten these in a cross pattern. So this way and this way. And you can go through the monkey drill of using a claw on the end of a torque wrench if you want. I don't do that. I think it's a waste of time. These, I believe they take like 28 to 30 foot-pounds of torque, which is a lot. You're not going to damage anything. Chances of over-tightening them are pretty slim. And I'll grab something else over here. All right, so I tightened that one. I'm going to tighten this one. I'm going to tighten this one and this one. And I'm going to go back this way. Okay, those are snugged up. From there, it's time to put the O-rings in the head. KTMs don't use a gasket, they use O-rings to seal. And I put a little grease in the groove up here to help hold them in place while I drop the head on. You don't need to fill the entire groove. Just do it in a few places. And if some gets in the water jacket, it's not a big deal. It's gonna melt and it's nothing to be concerned about. And I'll put a little bit on the inside one as well. And you can use whatever you have for grease. Don't get all anal about what viscosity of the grease is. Okay, that's good. And the new head's ready to go on. All right, so this is a far superior design. Let me see if you can see this, yeah. Far superior design to, I'm gonna rotate this, sorry guys, damn it. Okay. This is what came on it. Some people call this the Hemi. I really prefer the old style squish. I think they're much more proficient. And I'm gonna wipe this, clean it up just a little. From there, so there's these little steel dowel pins that go in top of the cylinder. And there's the corresponding holes up here. Okay, so sometimes those go right in, most of the time they don't, so I'm going to tap them a little bit. And I'm going to put the head O-rings on. Wipe off any excess grease. And put the inner one on. Don't forget to put both of them on there, you'll have a problem. That's why it's also good while you're doing a project to stop and kind of reorganize once in a while. Just get things organized so it helps prevent you from leaving something out. All right, so that grease is holding those in place very nicely. So now this new head can be dropped on. It will actually go on wrong, I think. I'm not sure if it will or not. Those dowel pins might keep it from going on wrong. But if you happen to be missing a dowel pin or lose a dowel pin, or even during a rebuild or something, they're not totally necessary. It's just for alignment. And when you stick the head bolts in there, they also align the head. So, especially if you're just missing one, no big deal. Go ahead and assemble it. All right, this is the bleed hole. That goes towards the back. This is the front of the motor. So, okay, so I just did that by feel. And from there, it's ready for head bolts. And I'm going to reuse these copper washers. There's nothing wrong with them. Sorry guys, I'm trying to look at the camera here. So I'm going to reuse these copper washers. Maybe I should lower this camera down here. And these are the original bolts. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put some lubricant on here. It can be whatever you have, but I've got some grease right in front of me here, so I'm just going to put a little on. It just makes the bolts torque properly. And especially if it's an engine that's been run for 100 hours, these bolts will have corrosion on them from the coolant. And those bolts definitely will not torque correctly, because that coolant will make them kind of bind a little bit as they're going in and give you a false torque reading. There's 2 more bolts there. Looks like one of them disappeared here for a minute. Grease on the bolts. And I seem to have misplaced one of the head bolts, so I guess I will grab one out of this package. It's probably on the floor over there. I'll find it later. Put that on with sealing washer. Some people call these crush washers. They're not a true crush washer. They're a sealing washer. Not a lot of difference between the two, but there is a difference. All right, so those are ready to go in. Grab my 13mm socket. Run these down. Check the camera. Uh-oh. Yep. You want the bolts to go in nice and smoothly. If they don't, then you should get out a tap and clean out the holes in the cylinder and then run a die over the bolt, because you want everything to run smoothly, or bolt down smoothly. Okay, from there, this one, let's see. Yeah, it goes in slightly tough. I'm gonna snug it down here. And I'm just barely snugging these down. Okay, Okay, Torqueaholics, don't pass out. Here's the torque wrench in my hand. And I'm going to set this to, I believe these go to 19.5. Yep. Now, wait a minute. I got ahead of myself there. I don't want to go right to 19.5. I'm going to go to about 12 first. Now, let's see here. Okay, now I'm going to go to 16. Now I'm going to go to 19.5. Sorry. Okay, those are torqued and ready to go. So that is a click style torque wrench. I'm going to make a video on the different styles of torque wrenches, and I think that most newbie guys, you guys haven't done this before or haven't done it for a long time or whatever, are much better off using a digital torque wrench, because some clicker torque wrenches don't have a very good feel, and it's really hard to feel them click. And I've had several customers that didn't feel the click, and they just kept on going and stripped out the hole on the cylinder. It's fixable, but it's a real pain in the butt, and you really don't want to go there. So be careful if you're using a clicker style. Okay, so from here I need to set this up, and I'm going to take a little break. Okay, guys, I took a little break. I'm ready to get back at it here. You know, these videos take a long time. Between all the setup with the camera and lights and the tools and the parts and this and that, you know, I could do, in the time it's taken me to do this one video, I could have done this job at least 3 times if I didn't deal with the video. So, you know, that's why I took a little break there. All right, so next we have to set up, all right, to back up a little bit. First we use this adjuster down here, and I'm going to make a separate video on installing the power valves, which will include this adjuster. So you can refer to that if you'd like. But this adjuster down here is to set the flap height at 49.5 on 300s and 49 on 250s, but this is a 250 to 300 conversion, so we're only concerned about the 300 spec, and that is 49.5 is the flap in there that goes up and down like this. At its bottom position, it should be 49.5. We sell a special tool for doing that. It's not expensive. I'm going to say it's $12 or maybe $15 for setting that height, and I'll show you that in the video that I'm going to make about doing the power valve setup. But so the flap height has already been set to where it stops down at 49.5, but now we've got to make sure that the linkage matches that. So I'll this off real quick to show you. So, you know, this just moves back and forth by itself and doesn't do anything at this stage. But, you know, the linkage, you could have it up a little bit when you put this arm on here and put the bolt in there. So that's what this part of this video is about. So remove this hose, remove the vent hose piece. On the newer bikes, it's a 10 millimeter wrench. Some bikes still have the older style which unless you have a special tool, you have to grab that with a pair of pliers and unscrew it. So I'm going to take that out of there. And then you have to put in a bolt, a fully threaded bolt that's got at least 30 millimeters of threads. This one's a 40. And I'll make sure we get some of these in and put them on our site so you guys can, just do a one-stop shopping. Don't have to run to your hardware store or anything to get one of these. Or, you might have one in your supply kit or whatever. So you just run this all the way in until it bottoms that linkage down. And it only needs to be finger tight. You don't need to torque it or tighten it or anything else. Just finger tight's fine. Just make sure it's all the way down. It holds it in position. So now that's locked down. I can't push it up. All right, from there, I'm going to put this arm on because that's what we're trying to locate, is get the arm in the proper position. I'm just going to stick that in there. This bolt, make sure you can see that. Yep, this bolt comes in the kit. Also comes with a flat washer and a wave washer. The wave washer goes on first, then the flat washer is next. And let's see, I don't have the right size Torx wrench here for that, I believe. If that's too small. Give me just a second. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so now I've got some thread locker on here. I've got the wave washer, then the flat washer. Screw that in there. A tight squeeze. I'm gonna find an extension here. Little ratchet. Okay. So that's the spring that's doing that. I'm going to tighten that pretty good. All right, so now it's in the correct position. Take this bolt back out. And put the vent tube back in. I put a little thread locker on it. I don't have a 10 millimeter wrench here. I'll tighten that down later. No big deal. All right, from there you gotta pop this back off so that you can put the gasket on. The gasket goes this way, and this is the one that I took off, so it's used. Spray it a little bit, clean it up. And I use contact cleaner for cleaning all these different engine components. And that's got to go in there first before you put the link arm together. And then it's got to press down in here. Now these new metal ones are not too bad to get in there. If you have one of the previous gaskets that's made out of paper, sometimes you have to put a spring hook tool in there, or a spring removal tool, and pull out this rubber grommet just a little bit to get that gasket to drop in. All right, so now we're ready for the linkage. And then pin, wherever that is, there it is. Okay. So we should stick some paper back in here. I don't have any paper here handy. So this pin, there we go, it's got to go through a bottom hole and a top hole, and then it rotates over. That clip, excuse me. Now the cover's ready to go on. And I forgot. Sorry, guys. I knew there'd be things I forgot. I always do. Okay, so the easiest way to do this. This is the cover that goes on there, and it's got these grooves down in, or a groove down here that needs to slide over this piece. So I just fill that groove up with, sorry. So this groove has to slide over this. And I just fill that groove up with silicone seal, just a high temp silicone. This one's not even high temp, but I've used this before, it works just fine. Okay, from there, I'm just going to fill up that groove. And that helps seal this cover because they're notorious for leaking right here. I know guys are going to post that they put on the different type of rubber piece here, but this is the latest one. This is a 22 model bike. So don't waste your time. Give me those comments. All right, so that's ready to go on. I'm just going to slide it in position. And then it's ready to tighten down. Okay. I don't think you need to watch me put screws in there or put the spark plug and the hoses and stuff back on. I'm sure you can figure all that stuff out on your own. Anyhow, you put the 3 screws back in here, put your new spark plug in here, put your hoses and your radiator back on, pipe, and then you're ready to go. We're putting an SX CDI box in this one, and that goes up here underneath the seat. Right up here is the CDI box, and you just unplug and plug this in. I'm not sure what CDI box they're coming with these days. For a while they came out with just the regular 300 CDI box. This is an SX one. I do not know if that came in this kit or not, or if that's something the customer bought separately. Frame bracket goes in here. Definitely don't forget to put your coolant back in. That's why I always leave the cap sitting down on the bench, so that when I'm cleaning up before I start the bike, I find the cap, and then I realize it's time to put some fluid in there. And as far as fluid goes, we've got a lot of different kinds. We've got engine ice, Motor X, whatever you want. If we don't have it for a KTM, you probably don't need it. So SlavensRacing.com, we have all the stuff. We have these cylinder kits, although these are very hard to get. They're always, we've always got a long list of people waiting for them. And there's a bunch of different kits we sell for the fuel-injected models, the older models, as well as mini bikes and yada, yada, yada. But I think that's about all there is on this topic, guys. So break-in, let's cover that real quick. All right, everybody gets their panties in a bundle over that. So I just ride them. I don't ride them extremely hard, but I just ride my bike. I mean, I just go out on the track or the trail, wherever I am, and I ride. And that doesn't mean rev it to the guts, rev the guts out for the first 5 minutes. That just means ride it reasonably, run it through the power band. It doesn't hurt to rev it. I wouldn't be doing sand washes or big hill climbs for the first hour or so, but just ride the damn thing. Don't do heat cycles in the garage. That does absolutely nothing except for plug up, and not plug up, but get a bunch of grunge inside your pipe and on your power valves and in your muffler packing. So do not do heat cycles. That is something we did about, 50 years ago when we had cast iron cylinders. These do not need that. Do you think that the factory guys do that? Hell no. They get on them and ride the hell out of them. And you got to remember, all these new bikes were run on the dyno at the factory before they put them in the crate. And dynos, they run them wide open throttle, brand new motor, wide open on the dyno. So if it can survive that, it can sure as hell survive you just riding the bike. You know, like I said, don't be stupid. Go do 6-gear pin for 2 miles. That'd be a good way to blow it up. But just ride and enjoy it. And don't even think much about the break-in. Just enjoy the bike. So, trying to think what else I might have forgotten here. I'm sure there's always something I forget. But hopefully this helps you get on track. If any of you guys are looking at this video and thinking, I actually just need to do a top-end rebuild on my bike, I've got a new rebuild video in the works that'll be out in a couple of weeks. And that will be I'm going to use my 2300 to do a complete rebuild, start to finish, including servicing power valves and all that stuff. I'm also going to make a separate video on just power valve setup. And you know, guys, please, if you're a trail rider, please be kind to the other trail users. Also help out with your trails if you can. You know, I know we're all a bunch of independent people that don't like to get involved with clubs and meetings too much, but it doesn't hurt to go to your local trail club and help them out. Or just take your saw and shovel out on the trail and fix damage, trim out downfall trees, whatever you can do. But you know, just be a good trail steward. And then please, it helps us out if you'll like us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube, and give us a shout out once in a while. And we have the biggest variety of KTM, Husqvarna, and GasGas parts on the planet. Every little trick item you can possibly think of, we sell it. So, you know, please throw us a bone once in a while if you can. But the most important part is get out and wear out some tires. Do some throttle therapy. That's all for now.